So, let me get this straight, Captain Elias Mercer said, staring at the floating holodisplay aboard the HSS Pathfinder. Your species, the same species that melted the polar crust of 8 planets just to settle a territorial dispute, wants us to babysit your children? The figure across the table clicked its mandibles in what might have passed for amusement among its kind. It stood a full head taller than any human, its black armor exoskeleton gleaming like polished obsidian, and its wings folded neatly down its back. That is a concise, if inelegant, summation, Ambassador Scalvar replied in a guttural tone that carried both menace and fatigue, though we prefer the term intercultural juvenile conditioning initiative. Mercer blinked twice. You're asking the same species that invented combat sports for fun and shotgunned its way into the coalition of stars after inventing faster-than-light travel by blowing up a toaster, to raise your murder larvae? Skull clicked again. Yes. Precisely. Mercer leaned back in his chair, feeling the dull pressure behind his eyes. His crew called it Coalition-Induced Bureaucratic Headache, or CIBH. It mostly affected human officers who had the misfortune of dealing with interspecies negotiations on a regular basis. Why? Mercer asked slowly. Do you think this is a good idea? Because, Skoll said matter-of-factly, your kind is the only species in the known galaxy that our young do not attempt to immediately disembowel upon first contact. Well, that's new information. The Drakari were infamous. To humans, they looked like a cross between armored beetles and skeletal pterodactyls. To the rest of the galaxy, they were known simply as the Harrowed Swarm, a race of hive-bred warriors that had conquered a third of the Persean expanse through sheer intimidation, extreme efficiency, and a cultural obsession with dominance. Yet here they were, on the doorstep of peace. Sort of. Skull had arrived aboard the Pathfinder under diplomatic clearance, much to the dismay of several junior officers who still flinched every time he twitched a claw. According to the Coalition files, he had once single-handedly dissolved a pirate armada by boarding their flagship with nothing but a blade made from his own discarded carapace. Mercer rubbed his temples. And you want to start this little cultural experiment with us? Why? You misunderstand, Skull replied. We do not want you. We require you. Mercer gestured for elaboration. The Drakari, like humanity, evolved on what the galaxy classifies as a Tier 4 hostile environment world. Skull began. Most sentient species originate from placid garden worlds. Soft, predictable, abundant. Your kind, like ours, were forged in violence, disaster, and instability. Mercer raised an eyebrow. You're saying Earth is a death world. I am saying, Skull replied. Your oceans are full of monsters that glow in the dark and eat their children. Your weather can kill entire cities in an afternoon. Your land spawns venomous ambush predators for sport. And despite all that, you chose to build societies to stay in danger. Fair. Skull's voice dropped to a more serious tone. But where you adapted by forming cooperation, we adapted through conquest. When we meet the unknown, we either consume it or destroy it. This philosophy no longer serves us. Mercer narrowed his eyes. Why? Because we have run out of our knowns. That was sobering. The galaxy has been charted. Expansion now means war with capable species. War we might not survive. Mercer leaned forward. And the kids. Our spawnlings are born with instinctual threat analysis patterns, Skal said. Most sentient species register as either prey or predator. If they are prey, younglings chase. If predator, they attack. But humans, we don't trigger either instinct, Mercer guessed. Correct. Your kind is anomalous. You are neither small nor weak, but you do not emit threat markers. You are unpredictable, yet your behavior trends cooperative. Younglings observe, but do not attack. So, we fall into some kind of instinctual blind spot. You are the evolutionary puzzle they do not know how to solve, and therefore they listen. At that moment, the briefing room doors opened, and Lieutenant Commander Talia Rios walked in, tablet in hand. She took one look at the display, showing a Drakari youngling, a small, sleek-limbed thing with claws longer than her forearm and eyes that shimmered like molten gold, and immediately reversed course. "Nope," she said, already halfway back out. "I am not certified for murder gremlins." "Rios, wait!" Mercer called. "I'm the science officer," she shot back. "Not a damn preschool teacher." The doors hissed shut. Skal tilted his head. "She seems spirited." "She's practical," Mercer replied. "And she's got a point. You're asking us to babysit what amounts to razor-clawed war pups." Skal's mandibles clicked in what might have been a sigh. 3, he said, "for 6 of your solar months, all from military lineage. They will travel under escort and be subject to your rules and supervision. You will teach them cooperation, socialization, games." "Games? Your people play for fun. This is foreign to Drakari. It must be taught." Mercer exhaled slowly. "And in return?" Skal's eyes gleamed. "Advanced shielding tech, defensive-grade materials, support for human expansion efforts." Now that got Mercer's attention. He tapped the table. "You're seriously offering us the kind of tech that usually only shows up in rumors and war crime reports. If we run an alien daycare..." "A highly structured intercultural juvenile conditioning initiative," Skal corrected. Mercer leaned back. This was either the most absurd diplomatic request in human history, or the most important. He stared at the Drakari ambassador for a long moment, then asked the one question that had been bothering him. "What happens if this doesn't work?" Skal's tone turned grave. "Then the harrowed swarm will continue as it always has. We will consume until we are destroyed. And you're hoping a few human babysitters can stop that." "We are hoping," Skal said, "that you can change it." Captain Elias Mercer stood with arms folded as the shuttle from the Drakari dreadship Severance of Silence approached. The Pathfinder, one of Earth's newer exploration-class ships, looked like a minimalist dream of streamlined alloys and efficient curves. The Drakari shuttle, on the other hand, resembled a flying coffin designed by someone who thought aerodynamics was a personal insult. "Sensor report?" he asked. 5 life signs, said Ensign Lee from the control booth. 2 adult Drakari, 3 juveniles. Small, about 1 meter tall each, 30 kilos. Mercer did a quick mental conversion. That was roughly the size of a 6-year-old human child. That was either comforting or deeply misleading. Lieutenant Commander Talia Rios appeared beside him, looking like she'd been awake all night with her nose buried in xenobiology files. "Good news or bad news?" Mercer asked. She held up her tablet. "Mostly good. The younglings are omnivores. They can eat most human food. They sleep in 4-hour cycles, 16 total per day, and they're highly social, which helps with bonding." "And the bad?" "They test boundaries constantly. It's how they assess safety." "Oh, and they can leap twice their body height from a standstill. Also, their claws are technically classified as low-grade melee weapons. So basically tiny carnivorous gymnasts." "Accurate." The shuttle landed with a deep mechanical thud. The docking bay's atmosphere recyclers kicked into overdrive to clear the exhaust, hissing like annoyed serpents. The boarding ramp extended. Out stepped Ambassador Skal, just as towering and unreadable as ever. Beside him was another adult Drakari, slightly larger, with thicker thorax armor, and an expression like he was already calculating how many humans he could eviscerate in under a minute. "That," Rios muttered, "must be their military escort." "Name?" Mercer asked. "Commander Karesh, known as Shield of the Ancients. He once wrestled a Kelnari acid drake during a border skirmish with one arm." Charming. But then came the real surprise. 3 younglings trotted down the ramp behind them, all clearly different from their adult counterparts. Smaller, more agile, their exoskeletons a polished mix of iridescent hues. Their eyes were larger and more expressive, and they moved like curious predators exploring unfamiliar terrain. The smallest one made a high-pitched trill and darted toward a floor panel before Skal barked a command that stopped them in their tracks. Skal approached. "Captain Mercer, Lieutenant Commander Rios, I present the future of the Drakari." The largest youngling stepped forward and made a series of clacks and whistles. "This is Kira, offspring of our fleet master," Skal translated. "They say, 'I am honored to meet you. I will learn your ways so I do not have to kill you later.' This is a compliment." Kira cocked their head at Mercer. "Do humans really change color in the face when emotionally unstable?" "We call it blushing." The youngling made an enthusiastic clicking sound and turned to the others, clearly sharing this revelation. Skal pointed to the second one. "This is Vox, spawn of our chief technomancer. They ask if it is true humans willingly consume vegetation." "Yes," Rios replied. "It's called salad." "And this is Naira, offspring of our siege architect. She is fascinated by rumors that humans keep non-sapient species as companions." "You mean pets?" "Yes. She has many questions." The transfer process took an hour. While Skal and Commander Karesh reviewed behavioral guidelines and emergency protocols, the younglings roamed the bay with the tireless curiosity of toddlers armed with tactical scanners. Kira poked at a wall console. Vox found a crate of emergency supplies and tried to sort them by chemical composition. Naira attempted to follow a maintenance bot through a floor vent. "They're energetic," Mercer offered diplomatically. Polite hurricanes, corrected Chief Delaney, who'd already been assigned as a temporary handler. They don't mean to cause chaos, he added. Chaos just seems magnetically drawn to them. Mercer crouched down and addressed the younglings directly. All right, listen up. This ship has rules. You follow them and we'll get along fine. Break them and Rios will make you read human food labels until your antennae fall off. Rios gave him a look. The younglings trilled with confusion. Kira raised a claw. Question, Rios translated. Are we allowed to ask how things work before disassembling them? Please do, Mercer replied. Ask first, then touch, and absolutely no play fighting with the engineering crew. Kira looked disappointed. Vox tilted her head thoughtfully. Naira tried to high-five a fire suppression sensor. Captain Mercer, Skull said as he and Koresh prepared to depart. Remember, they are not merely here to observe. They are here to unlearn. If they succeed, we have hope. If not, Mercer nodded. We'll do our part. Skull's voice grew unexpectedly quiet. They are excited. They speak of your kind often. They call you the soft ones who live on the water world and invent impossible things for fun. Accurate, Mercer said with a smirk. They are particularly interested in something called games. He chuckled. They're in for a wild ride. As the shuttle departed, the three younglings stood in the middle of Docking Bay 3, claws twitching in anticipation, eyes scanning every surface for adventure. Rios looked over at him. So, she said, what now? Mercer folded his arms, watching as Naira discovered the sliding door sensor and tried to mimic it. Now, he said, we figure out how to babysit the galaxy's most dangerous children. It started, as with all things, with an emergency lockdown on the observation deck. Somehow, Kira had discovered the emergency override panel, opened it using a hairpin from a crew member's bun, don't ask, and initiated the full lockdown protocol for training purposes. When questioned, they insisted they were testing human security redundancies. Then Vox vanished into the maintenance tunnels for 2 hours, chasing what turned out to be a venting coolant drip. Rios found her wedged upside down behind a server cabinet, clinging to an anti-static conduit like a jungle gym. Naira, meanwhile, learned that the gravity plates made interesting sounds when scratched rapidly with claws. By the end of day 1, the engineering team had resorted to following the younglings around with portable scanners and mild sedatives, just in case. "They're like adorable assassins," said Chief Delaney, wiping sweat from his brow. "One moment they're watching a documentary about butterflies, and the next they've rerouted the ship's lighting grid to improve ambience." Mercer found them later in the rec room. Kira was glued to a holographic nature program about Earth's rainforests, eyes wide with fascination. Vox had headphones on, listening to something that sounded suspiciously like Beethoven's Fifth, her antennae twitching in rhythm. Naira had discovered a deck of playing cards and was studying them with the grim determination of someone trying to decipher ancient ruins. "How's it going?" Mercer asked, settling beside them. Kira looked up and made a series of eager chirps. Rios, now assigned as the youngling's full-time translator, responded without glancing up from her tablet. "Kira wants to know if every human planet has as many interesting life forms as Earth. We try to bring a bunch with us when we colonize new ones, Mercer replied. Mostly the cute ones, sometimes the terrifying ones. By accident. Vox made a low, trilling sound. She's asking if we really make music just to feel things, Rios said. She finds the idea inefficient. Also, fascinating. We do it for beauty, Mercer said. For expression. For joy. The three younglings exchanged clicks too fast for Rios to keep up. They're discussing whether beauty has utility, she muttered. This might take a while. It was Rios who first introduced them to board games. I figured it might teach them about turn-taking, she explained. Rules, strategy, and most importantly, not murdering each other when they lose. She chose checkers, simple enough for children, complex enough for thought. The younglings were skeptical. The idea of competing without eliminating the opponent was completely alien to them. But by the third round, Kira had beaten Rios twice. Are they counting moves ahead? Mercer asked. More than that, she said. They're mapping probability trees based on memory of prior games. Kira figured out forced captures and reverse strategy after 10 minutes. Next came chess, Go, and Uno. Then poker. Kira took the pot without ever bluffing. Vox memorized the entire rulebook. Naira started redesigning the scoring system to make it more honor-efficient. They're obsessed, reported Lieutenant Foster from the entertainment division. They've been playing non-stop. Board games, card games, video games. One of them asked me if human games constitute a form of tactical negotiation ritual. Tell them yes, Mercer said. That's probably not even a lie. Foster paused. There is one concern. Go on. They don't know how to lose. After losing a spaceship racing game to Vox for the 8th time, Naira entered what Mercer could only describe as a silent rage spiral. Not violent, not aggressive, just determined. She played the same game for 6 hours straight, adjusting her tactics after every loss. She's building a model of Vox's behavior, Foster whispered. I think she's trying to beat the player, not the game. Mercer watched as Naira finally won a round. The other two younglings cheered. Then Naira simply leaned back, folded her claws across her lap, and announced she was now ready to teach others. That night, Rio sat across from Mercer in the mess. I think we're making progress, she said. You mean they haven't tried to dismantle a plasma relay in 48 hours? No. I mean they're learning. Actually learning. Socially. She pulled up a clip on her tablet. It showed the three of them playing a modified form of hide-and-seek with the crew. They called it Hunt and Howl. It had rules, boundaries, and it was fun for everyone. They created it themselves, Rio said, and they made sure it was balanced so humans could play too. That's impressive, Mercer said, and deeply terrifying. She smiled. I think they're becoming kids. The next test came by accident. There was a disagreement during a chess game. Kira wanted to change the rules, merge knights and bishops into one piece. Vox disagreed. Naira tried to mediate. It ended in a 3-way wrestling match that overturned 2 chairs and left the table smoking slightly. Mercer arrived just in time to see Kira trying to pin Naira with a rook. "Hey!" he barked in his best Captain breaking up a food fight voice. "What is going on here?" The younglings froze. Rios arrived moments later, tablet in hand. "Argument about game modification," she said. "No injuries, just strong feelings." Mercer knelt to their level. "Listen, games have rules, not because they're perfect, but because they're shared. When you change them without agreement, you break the trust." The younglings tilted their heads. "You want to play differently? Fine. But everyone agrees first. That's called respect." After a pause, Kira trilled quietly. "They say," Rios translated, "they will attempt this verbal compromise method." Mercer stood. "Good. Now get back in there and discuss like tiny diplomats." That night, as he reviewed the daily reports, Mercer noticed something peculiar. The younglings had begun dividing tasks among themselves. Kira observed officers and took notes. Vox assisted in the lab. Naira shadowed Chief Delaney in engineering. They weren't just playing anymore. They were watching, learning, becoming. A few weeks later, a new incident occurred. The lights dimmed. Then a cascading series of alerts screamed through the HSS Pathfinder like a startled animal bolting from fire. Environmental controls compromised. Navigation intermittent failures. Communications error loop. Defensive systems partial lockdown. The red emergency lights turned everything blood-colored. Captain Elias Mercer burst onto the bridge. "Talk to me!" he barked. Lieutenant Torres had 4 screens open and 3 more minimized. "Sir, it's everything. System failures across all major compartments. Nothing malicious in the logs, but everything's going haywire." "Sabotage?" "No sign of breach. It's internal." Rios arrived seconds later, tablet under one arm, the other holding a protein bar she'd apparently been eating mid-walk. "Where did the cascade start?" Mercer asked. "Engineering," said Torres. Mercer froze. "Where are the kids?" Rios blinked. "They're not on the bridge." They found Kira, Vox and Naira in engineering, lined up neatly, claws clasped behind their backs, in a posture that Mercer was starting to think came straight out of Drakari boarding school. The engine room looked like someone had torn it down, rebuilt it upside down, and then reassembled it using a different instruction manual written by a speed-obsessed alien species that believed in efficiency through chaos. Chief Delaney stood in the middle of the mess, jaw tight, pointing at a data pad. "Sir," he said, "I think they upgraded the ship." Mercer stared. "What?" "They've been modifying the core systems, power conduits, environmental controls, processing clusters. They rewrote part of the ship's operating code and installed hybrid Drakari subroutines. It's throwing off all the system checks. The computers think we're under attack." Mercer turned slowly toward the 3 younglings. They looked up at him with expressions that ranged from cautious pride, Kira, to abject guilt, Vox, to the unnerving calm of someone who believed they had genuinely improved the world, Naira. "They say," Rios translated, "they noticed inefficiencies in the way we route power and maintain environmental balance. So they made improvements." Mercer pinched the bridge of his nose. "Without telling anyone. They thought it would be a pleasant surprise. They nearly vented the medbay into space. They are very sorry. Mercer took a long breath. Okay. First, no more modifying ship systems without explicit permission. 3 heads nodded rapidly. Second, I want a full inventory of everything you changed. They nodded again. Third, Mercer paused, rubbing his temples. Good work. Really, terrible execution, but these improvements are impressive. The younglings visibly relaxed. Kira stepped forward and made a quiet series of chirps. They're asking if they can help fix it, Rios said. Mercer looked to Delaney, who sighed and said, Honestly, they probably understand it better than I do. The next 8 hours were chaos, but controlled chaos. The human engineering team, now aided by 3 terrifyingly competent 6-year-old Drakari, began to re-stabilize the ship's systems. Vox reconfigured the diagnostic subroutines. Naira created a translation layer so the ship's software could parse the alien code. Kira restructured the sensor arrays to handle higher power throughput. By the end of it, Pathfinder was 30% faster, 20% more energy efficient, and its environmental systems were now able to auto-adjust for 5 different life forms in real time. Mercer leaned against a wall and watched the younglings work alongside his crew. There were no claws, no threats, just cooperation. Rios appeared beside him. You seeing this? I am, Mercer said quietly. This is what Skoll hoped for. That night, Mercer gathered the younglings in the rec room. You 3 nearly took out half the ship, he began. Kira lowered their head. But you also worked with my crew to fix it. You didn't just learn from us. You helped teach us something. Naira tilted her head. That cooperation increases efficiency. No, Mercer replied. That we're better together. The younglings were quiet for a moment. Then Kira stepped forward and offered him a small tool, one of the multi-purpose diagnostics claws they'd created from spare parts. A gift, Rios translated, to thank you for trusting them. Mercer accepted it, then held it up. You're not just learning, you're becoming. By week's end, the entire crew had adjusted to their presence. Kira had become Mercer's shadow, recording everything he did, observing his leadership style, and occasionally correcting his posture. She's writing a paper on you, Rios told him. Title, Tactical Efficiency of Soft-Skinned Hierarchy Leaders. Vox was a fixture in the lab. She'd started building miniature experiments to test human curiosity thresholds.
Naira, naturally, had taken over the auxiliary control panel in engineering. No one even stopped her anymore. She was too useful. Delaney described her as a one-creature efficiency revolution with too many questions and the ability to fit into spaces humans aren't legally allowed to access. By the end of this week, one thing had become clear. They weren't just guests anymore, they were crew. Soon after, the time had come. Captain Elias Mercer stood in conference room A, adjusting his uniform collar for the 3rd time in as many minutes. The Pathfinder had completed its 6-week experiment. The younglings were returning home, and Ambassador Scalvar was arriving momentarily aboard the dreadship Severance of Silence, likely flanked by at least a dozen stern-faced honor guards who would definitely not appreciate how many stickers now adorned their children's claws. "You look nervous," Lieutenant Commander Rios said beside him, arms folded, expression amused. Mercer shrugged. "I'm not nervous. You've been standing in one spot, staring at the same coffee stain for 5 minutes." Strategic reflection. She rolled her eyes. The conference room doors hissed open, and in came Kira, Vox, and Nera, now taller, more composed, but still very much the same chaos-engineered, claw-wielding kids he'd grown unexpectedly attached to. Kira wore a sash, covered in badges from various departments. Vox carried a data pad the size of a briefcase, filled with notes. Naira had a custom multi-tool clipped to her carapace. Behind them entered Ambassador Skal, and beside him, the High Speaker of the Drakari, wings spread in ceremonial display. Mercer blinked. "They brought royalty. They brought witnesses," Rios whispered. "This is going to be big." For the next hour, Mercer debriefed Skoll and the delegation on everything. The social integration, the engineering incident, the adaptation to games, rules, negotiation, and emotional expression, the results of Kira's observational study on soft leadership, the fact that Naira had started designing a mixed-species habitat module for fun. They were not just cooperative, Mercer concluded. They were transformative, not just for themselves. For us. Skal regarded the human captain with those golden predator eyes. "You say they were children, yet you speak as if they were teachers." "They were both," Mercer replied. At that moment, Kira stepped forward and began clicking in precise, rhythmic patterns. Rios translated softly. "She says, 'You taught us that strength is not always power, that trust is a kind of weapon, that honor is not earned through fear, but through choice.'" The room was silent. Then Vox spoke. She says, "Thank you for teaching me that curiosity is not a weakness, that joy is not a distraction, that fun can be a form of learning." Finally, Naira stepped forward and chittered. She says, "Thank you for showing me that things can be built not just to last, but to connect." Mercer felt his throat tighten. Then came the part he hadn't expected. A line formed. One by one, crew members entered to say goodbye. Chief Delaney handed Naira a toolkit engraved with the Pathfinder logo. Lieutenant Foster gave Vox a collection of Earth music, stored in 6 formats, with a note. "You'll understand this more than we ever will." Kira received a small brass chess piece, her favorite, from Ensign Torres, who had sparred with her every night after shift. Rios knelt to hug each one. She didn't say anything. She didn't need to. And then they were standing in front of Mercer. Kira stepped forward, gave a formal bow, and placed a small black chip into his hand. "A gift," Rios whispered. "It contains everything they've learned, not just from us, but about us." Mercer knelt to their level. "You're always welcome aboard," he said. All three younglings chittered softly in unison. It was the Drakari equivalent of a vow. Then they left. Some time later, Lieutenant Torres called from the doorway. "We're getting a high-priority transmission from Drakari space." Mercer straightened in his chair. "Put it through." The holoprojector flared to life, and there they were. Kira, Vox, Naira. No longer children, not quite adults, but standing taller, prouder, more poised than before. Behind them, Ambassador Skoll. "Captain Mercer," Skoll said, mandibles twitching in something dangerously close to a smile. "I bring news." Kira stepped forward. Her voice was clear. "We have instituted cooperative exchange programs on 17 Drakari ships. Human liaison officers are being trained." Vox added, "I now serve as Cultural Systems Advisor to the Drakari Science Directorate." Naira raised a brow ridge. "And I am engineering lead on the first hybrid human Drakari scout vessel." Mercer blinked. Skoll wasn't finished. "The Drakari High Conclave has voted unanimously to establish formal partnership with humanity." Mercer's eyebrows went up. "Alliance?" "Partnership," Skoll corrected. "Not a treaty of convenience. A shared future, built together." Kira stepped forward once more. "And you," she said, "are requested to attend the founding summit on Draka Prime as honored delegate and as friend." Mercer sat back, smiling. From babysitting duty to galactic diplomat, all in a cycle's work. Final transmission. Personal log. Captain Elias Mercer. "We were never the strongest species, we weren't the fastest or the oldest, but when the galaxy needed someone to raise the most dangerous children it had ever seen, it picked us. And we didn't just teach them how to play, we taught them how to hope. I don't know what comes next, but I know this. Humanity belongs out here, as builders, as bridge makers, as the ones who turn threats into allies, and apparently as the galaxy's best damn babysitters."